Senator Alma Francis Heyliger for her 3 minutes.
Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the testifiers. Good morning to the people of this territory. Well, I basically am in support of this piece of legislation resolution to honor Mr. Hilary Resende, aka Baga. One of the things that I have noticed that culture is a major part of Virgin Islands history, and anyone that has participated in making sure that steel pan and culture continued and is an integral part of who we are as a people, I will always support that. I think that when it comes to legislation such as this, that champion our culture, that champion engagement of our children to continue traditions and various items such as steel pan, I think it's a blessing not only for us that grew up with these items as part of our lives, but to continue it on and remembering the people that were really, really strong supporters. They were strong educators of learning these types of equipment. So what I want to ask, my first question is, I know several of you spoke about the greatness of this individual, but could you share with us the impact do you really believe that he's really had on this community as a whole in making sure that steel pan and what it represented here in the territory was an integral part of who we were? Mr. Ambrose, you can go first.
Mr. Ambrose, please unmute your mic. And Mr. Gerard, if you could take off your camera so we could have some good bandwidth to hear Mr. Ambrose.
My mic is on mute. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
We can hear you.
Please say your name.
Okay.
Please say your name first so that we can have it in the record. Proceed.
Yeah, my name is Ambrose.
Oh.
And provide the music, silver music, especially to dance.
Well, Mr. Ambrose, unfortunately, we can't hear you. Is it a way you could turn off the video and just talk to see if that would assist you? Like turn off the camera and just talk in the mic part. Maybe you might come out a little bit better.
Okay.
See if that works.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's see if that works.
Go ahead. Okay. Yes.
No. Mr. Ambrose, unfortunately, we can't hear you. Mr. Gerard, could you answer the question?
Wow.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay. When I met Baga, remember I was one of the steel band players for the Tournament of Roses Parade. And because of Baga, we reached to millions of people and we put the Virgin Islands on the map. Then Baga started teaching a lot of students to play, and many students branched off from the tutelage of Baga to form their own bands. And like I said before, I was surprised when I got to Antigua during the carnival that they were honoring Baga and Masai deceased on the stage.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that, because one of the things I realized with any of these bills for resolutions, it is always timely when we take the time out to honor these people that have participated to help build our culture. And I'm going to keep repeating that because as a Virgin Islander born and raised for 47 years, I am proud to have individuals like this that keep pushing us, that kept adding, that kept educating. You spoke to the fact that other children ultimately branched off because of his teachings, ultimately branched off and started their own bands. This is a prime example of when you take an opportunity to really teach a child, this is what you will get. So I rise in support. I am 100% in support of this resolution. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming here and putting your thoughts and testimony on the record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so kindly, Senator, which is Senator Alma Francis Heyliger. Senator Heyliger, you are recognized for your 4 minutes. Thank you kindly.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, testifiers. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. Good morning. I'm already into the afternoon. Well, Dr. Hall, welcome. How are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you doing?
Good. I was skimming through the naming policy that you have. First of all, the first question I want to ask: how old is the Sports and Fitness Center building?
I think it's approximately 18 years old. I don't have the exact date of construction, but it's within that range.
Okay. Could you share with us a specific amount that you might be aware of where the university has made attempts to get individuals to name this building?
Yeah, I mentioned the two that that has happened under my.
So in 18 years, you know about twice.
No,
that you know.
I've only been here. Yes, I've only been here 12 years. Now, again, I'm talking about outreaches that I made. We have a vice president of institutional advancement. I don't know how many different people he may have spoken to.
Do you guys keep a record of that? Do you keep a record of it? Because it would be interesting if you're doing it, the VP is doing it, and nobody has a concerted effort to try to get someone to name. So you don't know, outside of your 12 years, you only know about twice. Is that what you're sharing? That you know of? Okay.
That I reached out.
Okay, two.
And again, you don't reach out to anyone. Thinking about the amount of money we're talking about, it has to be individuals who have the capacity to give millions of dollars. Okay. And you just don't come across those types of individuals every day. So the efforts on my part and the effort of our VP for institutional advancement is something that has to be focused on individuals who have the capacity.
And as a university, from my understanding, the university utilizes the naming of buildings as a tool to fundraise. Is that what you're sharing with us today?
Yes, and this is not just this university. This is a standard practice of universities across the country. And it's not just buildings, but as you will see in the policy, it's sometimes rooms within buildings. It is it's professorships. It is programs, because major donors, those who are giving large sums of money, often want a recognition that creates a legacy. So this is something we do. It is something that other universities across the country do as well.
The other question I want to ask, do you guys, Madam Chair, may I ask my question?
Yes, Senator Heyliger, just don't abuse the time.
I will try really hard not to abuse my time. Thank you kindly.
You're more than welcome.
So the other question I wanted to ask had to do, has the university created a matrix, has compulated amount that they have done over the years, for example, of getting funding for naming building, rooms, etc., so we here could better understand the types of monies that can come into the university by allowing people to name the buildings, as opposed to us potentially doing it through legislation?
Yeah. We have, and the policy in essence creates that matrix, because it tells us how much we should be able to secure for a particular building, depending on what it is. That is a new building, existing buildings, etc. So what we try to do, in addition to the policy, is to come up with a list of potential donors who we know have the capacity to provide certain amounts. And we use that. We have to do research on donors. And so that list is something we are refreshing every year. But if this body would like to go to the core of your question, for us to give you a list of all of our buildings that are not yet named, that and what their estimated value is, so we would be able to then apply the formula to each particular building, then I'm more than willing to provide this body with that list. It would take a few days to do that, but I'm more than willing to provide that.
Well, I have to wrap up and turn it back over to my chair, but the question I asked was, have you calculated an amount you have already collected over the years? So if you could get a number, I would be happy if you would share that with me and my colleagues. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Sure. I'll be glad to share that.
Thank you so much,
Point of
Senator
inquiry.
Heyliger Francis.
Point of inquiry.
Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you're recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Once again, good afternoon to the testifiers. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. One of the things outside of me being a senator is I am also a business owner. And as a business owner, I will honestly tell you, the one thing that has me most anxious every single month is to open my WAPA bill. Every other bill I don't have a problem with. But the minute I see that envelope, I freak out because I have no clue what is going to be on the inside of it. And as a business owner, I am very concerned because also as a senator, I have to represent everyone. I represent the other business owners. I represent the regular individual that is stressed out to see hundreds of dollars on their WAPA bill on a monthly basis at times. And it wasn't any better this month because there was a raise in the fuel charge. So my bill went up hundreds of dollars. Hundreds. And I'm wondering, as a senator sitting here, what is being done collectively throughout all the years that we hear of contracts not being done correctly, in contract costs going up so high, we're still trying to understand what happened. I'm trying to understand when WAPA sits in front of us and tells us that they have had investigations internally where they found potential criminal wrongdoing and it's been turned over to the AG. Where are we with these things? Does WAPA have continuous investigations about line loss and people stealing power? It's a lot of things as a senator I need to know and understand as I represent the people of this territory. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions directly. Currently, what is happening in the AG's office as it relates to any reports of criminal activity in WAPA or any reports that have been turned over to you? What is the status in regards to any of these?
Attorney General, you need to unmute.
We can't hear you. You need to
unmute your mic. Kindly do so.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Because of, yes, and thank you for that question, Senator. Because of the confidential nature of criminal investigations, I cannot disclose or comment on the investigations. What I will tell you is that my office are working on a number of investigations. When we get complaints, then they are addressed. And then with the very limited staff that we do have, we do address them.
Okay. So you, unless WAPA or WAPA turns over a report to you or someone comes in to you and files a complaint, that's the only way you know something is happening? Or is this something that within your agency, like for example with the Inspector General, you might be aware of something and you might interject to see what's happening? I just need clarity on you before I move on to another testifier.
Matters for our consideration can come from various sources, other law enforcement agencies, from the Inspector General's office, from complaints that may be filed by citizens with respect to wrongdoing. At that point in time, we would then have to do an evaluation to see if what has been presented is sufficient to raise an investigation, and then an investigation would be opened. So that's basically how it happens.
Thank you. Inspector General, you shared that you are currently in the process of doing an investigation. Is there a timeline as to when that should be completed for us to get some information in regards to that?
Good afternoon, Senator. We're doing some projects with the Attorney General's office, as both she and I indicated. We have the inspection rather on the Vital contract, which we are reviewing the final draft report that the auditor presented to us. All of the field work is done. We work that in conjunction with WAPA's internal audit staff. So it was a joint project. So we're reviewing the final report, and we're hoping by the end of this month we can present it to WAPA for them to comment and go through their review process and response to issue a report.
So hopefully by the end of the month,
October or November.
So hopefully by the end of this,
October or November. I'm sorry, Santa, go ahead.
Now I was saying, so hopefully by the end of this month, it should be to WAPA so they could respond. So how long are you giving them that timeline to respond before potentially the public and others would be aware of what your investigation says?
We usually give anywhere from 3 weeks to a month to respond. So we're looking at the end of September probably before we get a response, and then to put the final report together. We're hoping by October or November at the latest. I hope to get the reports out before my retirement.
Okay. Well, I am looking forward to seeing them. For the PSC, may I ask my question?
You may wrap up.
Thank you. For the PSC, this body recently overrode a veto which gives you a lot more authority and power to assist with looking into what's happening at WAPA. Can you please tell me what are some of the things that you guys can now do that you were not able to do before that could potentially assist with some issues that are happening in the community in regards to WAPA?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. As the legislation was overridden, we await the response from the governor as to what the act number is, append to that particular piece of legislation. The legislation is broad in its mandate to the Public Services Commission. One of the things that the Commission has been seeking for years is the ability to deal with bids that go out. When the Water and Power Authority sent out an RFP, the Commission basically wants to have some input or review of the RFP. And it's not where the Commission is going to deal with the day-to-day operation of the utility. It is just an RFP. Assuming an RFP, Senator, goes out for the purchasing of generators. The Commission would basically look at that RFP and the scope of the RFP and what is being asked, and would assist with the authority to say, hey, listen, we believe based on what you're asking, you should put this particular generator, that particular generator, whatever it is, and then have a commitment in terms of rates where the utility and the Commission are basically understanding what it is going to cost in rates once these generators or whatever the RFP is going out to bring back. Previously,
my time has expired, so I don't want to overstep my bounds. So I will just say this. Basically, long and short, this power that you have been granted will assist with potentially helping reduce rates in our territory. I think that's all people care about.
Absolutely, I believe so. But I must say at this point in time, Senator, that the horse is already out of the barn. The rates are high.
Yes.
And what we're looking to WAPA, and WAPA has in place plans going forward to get new generation. I know the governor had authorized the Housing Finance Authority to provide funding for new generators which are underway. The concern we have is the length of time that is taking, because the time it's taking is still costing the ratepayers a lot of money. And that is where we collaborate with the authority to make sure that these generators get in place and as quickly as possible. So my bill and your bill and everybody's bill will go down. And in my testimony, I speak to the inefficient generators that are at the authority, which should have been replaced years and years ago. WAPA is moving forward to do that. Concern we have, Madam President, Senator, is the time it's taking to get that done. And I see Mr. The new chairman is there, and I'm sure he understands the gravity of the situation.
Thank you so much, Director Cole, for that information. I want to... Senator Alma Francis Heyliger, you are recognized for your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues again. Good afternoon, testifiers. Good afternoon to the people of the territory. The questions I want to ask has to do with your testimony in speaking to about the former director, because he came and shared quite a bit of information with us that some of what is being shared is a little bit contradictory, and I like to get, everything as factual as possible. One of the things that he did share as to the reason why he was suspended in regards to the hiring of those two individuals, he shared on the Senate floor that when he came on board, those positions were already approved to be hired, and when he came on board, he just continued the process. It wasn't so much the individuals. He said the board had already approved those positions, and when he came on board, he finished the process. Could you give us some clarity as to that, as to exactly how this went down? Thank you.
I would speak, and then I would ask either Member Georges or Secretary Moore to follow suit, and and Vice Chair Hansen. To my knowledge, the two individuals, I believe they went through the process with the former director, Sorrow. They were never approved by the board. Never approved by the board. They were in the process of, but then he was terminated in March. They never left his desk.
Okay.
Mr. Benjamin. Okay, so
just for clarity, he came into a position where individuals were already going through the process of being hired. So could it have been a situation where he felt he was just finishing a process that he was under the impression that was already started? Because if the board is the one that had to give approval, why would the former director, Mr. Saru, felt he had the authority to even bring people in, go through the process, go through everything as if though he was hiring them, then he leaves, another person comes and sees the information and continues the process and finishes the hiring? So is it possible he was just under the impression he was finalizing something and picking up duties that were left off to finish a process that was already started? Because what would have given Mr. Saru the impression that he even had the authority to do it in the first place?
I would let
Georges from the board.
Okay.
What happened, why he felt he had authority is because Mr. Saru was illegally hired by Governor Mapp. So, prior director Saru, he wasn't dealing with the board. He was like a one-man show dealing directly with the governor, which was Governor Mapp at the time. So he was not dealing with the board at all. So the board didn't have no authority when Director Saru was there. So all that, also while Director Sarro was there, to show you how he was operating, he gave his secretary, who was making $37,000 at the time, gave her 2 raises in the same year. So he moved her from $37,000 to $50,000. Now she's making $57,000 and getting ready to retire.
So the question I asked quickly, the question I asked, since you brought that up, I want to understand, if you guys are saying that you are the board, how would someone have the authority to do that outside of the board? Because this seems to be a battle with this taxi commission, where I'm under the assumption it should be focusing on advancing taxis in the industry, but it seems that it's always a friction between the board and the directors, and that's eating up so much time and space. We're not really getting to how to help taxis and the industry.
You said it correctly. That's exactly what is happening, because this Director Benjamin, he was operating same as Sarro, and he felt, based on Senator Sarro's advice that she said on the floor, that the director has the responsibility of hiring and firing. And Title 3, Section 274 states clearly, and she's a lawmaker, she should know better. So he was dealing directly with Sarro instead of dealing with the board. So we sent him several directives. He never answered one. That's why we was planning to have a meeting relative to his employment.
The only thing I would say, I outside of what the law says, just let me finish up. And one last question. Outside of what the law says, this dynamic seems a little bit skewed, because in a lot of organizations, directors will deal directly with the board, and then that director interacts and deals with the employees. But it seems it's a lot of different things. But I don't want to expand on that. I have one chance to ask one last question. One of the things that was discussed in the previous visit here to the legislature by the former executive director, they spoke about some of the enforcement officers being utilized by the COVID task force. I want to know, how is that affecting the taxi cab commission, and potentially how much revenue dollars you guys might be losing because you don't have enough enforcement officers, and what are your plans in order to try to boost up those numbers to deal with enforcement? Thank you very much.
Let me see. I lost trend. What was the question? Just give me a little bit so I can remember.
Repeat the question, Senator Francis Heyliger, quickly.
No problem. The question I had asked is, during the last testimony from the former director, he spoke about the lack of enforcement officers within the taxi cab commission, and some of the officers they did have were being loaned to the COVID task force, which is affecting the taxi cab commission. The question was, how much potential revenue do you feel you have lost because of lack of enforcement, and what do you guys plan on doing in regards to assist with getting that boosted up?
Well, again, like I said, the reports were redundant and they were not specific. However, we are forging on. And
Chairwoman,
as a matter of fact, one moment, so you could answer Senator Francis Heyliger's question, and I'll try to paraphrase it. She wants to know what there are the lack of enforcement officers. What is the board doing to beef up the number of enforcement officers that you don't have? What are you doing to beef that up, to get law enforcement officers on board at the Taxi Cab Commission? In my testimony, I refer to my testimony where I said that even if we hire enforcement officers, they're going to go right to the Virgin Islands Police Department. They're not coming to us, and that's why I wrote to the governor, and then subsequently to the nominee Martinez, to release those officers. And then when the COVID settles down and over, then we would hire the other officer, the other officers.
Okay, Senator Francis Heyliger, do you have a follow-up, or are you satisfied?
Well, I was wondering, as why are we waiting in regards to trying to get that done? Because if this is a critical, like based on your own testimony, you said tourism is up. So clearly we need some additional assistance. I was trying to understand, since you guys are stressing you're the only ones that can hire, the buck stop with you guys. So that's why I'm trying to understand.
We have no problem with hiring, but if we hire officers now, they would not be with the Taxi Cab Commission. They will go straight to the Virgin Islands Police Department.
That's something, if I may, one moment, if I just may, just bring some light. That's something that we may need to ask colleagues for verification. And when we go through the whole vetting process of the police commissioner nominee, that we ask, because definitely we need more law enforcement officers for the Taxi Cab Commission. Was there another person who wanted to chime in on that issue? I think that's what we need to
Yes.
as far as a solution, because if we have an increase in the number of tourists that are coming to our islands, we need to be able to ensure that all our laws are being properly enforced, and that those persons who are going outside of the law, they are being so duly reprimanded and notified and receiving the requisite arrests, etc., or citations.
Morning, George. Yes, and I support what you're saying, Senator Joseph. We would need some clarity, but as it's understood right now, all enforcement officers go under the banner of Department of Health / Virgin Islands Police Department as we try to curb the pandemic at this time. Therefore, we are currently covering the payroll 8 to 5 for our enforcement officers, with very little to no citations being written that we would be able to recoup. So it's a hardship, as Chairperson Lloyd noted in her report. It is a hardship. She has requested for our officers to come back because we see the problem. We are aware of the problem, but at this time our hands are tied because of the executive order. So unless we can get our officers back and move forward and even then hire others, as we do, we need to, we can do very little until we can have this happen. And this is the dilemma we are in. I hope that brought some clarity.
I said the same thing.
And thank you so much, Ms. George, for putting